One. Hello, welcome back. I think we are at week 9 already on the podcast, and welcome to the Big Venture Zone. This is David Cohen. I'm your host, and this show, of course, is geared to young entrepreneurs and founders 20 to 35 to give them strategies, ideas, confidence to move forward, and also tips, a community. We have a community group page in LinkedIn of the same name. Just join it. And of course, we also give you resources to succeed. And one of our resources we're actually interviewing today, and it's guest Dr. Suzanne Simpson. Dr. Suzanne Simpson is a Canadian educator and researcher and speaker who has spent 3 decades in classrooms and learning what young people believe and perceive. Her doctoral research, conducted inside a youth psychiatric unit, asked struggling adolescents what they needed most from the adults in their lives. And the findings were really simple and surprising. Suzanne now translates that research into practical tools for parents, educators, and anyone who leads people through hard moments. She hosts a podcast as well called Get on Their Turf and shares her work at her website, Dr. Suzanne, that's SUZANNE Simpson, so Dr. Suzanne Simpson, all one word, .com. So, without further ado, welcome to the Big Venture Zone, Suzanne. Nice to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me, David Cohn.
My pleasure. Um, so I want to ask, I guess the first question I was thinking when I was preparing for today, for our interview, is like, what are teens or younger adults, what are, where are they at these days, especially in
Oh
terms of
gosh.
mental health and hope? Because you hear like, man, like every one of them has some sort of mental health thing. And
Do you have 2 hours?
well, not really,
I
but
mean,
can you
so
give us the
David,
Coles notes?
I've got a 20 and a 21-year-old. So I
Yeah.
also come positioned I'm a mom. I just feel for Gen Z and Alpha. I've seen this. I just was talking to a 20-year-old yesterday. It's not a nice world we're in right now for all of us,
Yes.
let alone starting into adulting and trying to make your way in this world. And we have so many complexities. We're looking at climate change. You and I are going to be gone sooner than a 20-year-old that is stuck with what we've created. We're looking at, more job insecurity. Looking at AI replacing jobs. We're looking at a lot of kids with degrees and master's degrees driving Uber and serving. Nothing's wrong with serving, but not using their university education. And the mental health, I mean, we know since the early 2010s, the mental health disorders in young people have up to doubled in disorders globally around the world.
And is that a byproduct of, is it nurture versus nature? Is it parenting? Is it that as parents, we too are going through our own stuff and issues and healing, but we're also, stressed to the max between work or jobs or family or older parents to take care of? Is it that, or is it just a byproduct of what's going on in the world? Like I just interviewed a couple of teachers around money, and one of the concerns for young people is debt. They're in debt, they're gambling, right? And they're spending like there's no tomorrow, kind of like a doomsday spend. So, what do you, what, where, you know, nature versus nurture, your comments?
I see twofold. I could listen to two things that are intertwined. Number one, as you said it, everything we just talked about, this world, is us adults are in this too.
Hmm.
And adults, like parents and older, are dealing with food insecurity. Food banks now aren't, they're not able to serve the population that needs them. Job loss, COVID did a number on some people financially, financial insecurity. I'm working with a family right now that could lose their home, and stressed, and then our own mental health challenges. and then the parenting on top. I am the very first person to say, and it's not politically correct in some circles, that it starts at home. Our kids' future is founded of what we do as parents when the kids are young. And I say that we need to take the responsibility, but it's hard. I say that without judgment. It's hard, and parents themselves are struggling. So that's number one. I think the family structure and foundation has just been rattled, and what I grew up with is very different than the world today with parents. But number two is social media. That's researched. Like that is kind of there's data around the world as well of that global research that directly links the deteriorating mental health globally with the smartphone, but not just the smartphone. It's what's on the smartphone with the apps, social media, Reddit, violent video games, hardcore porn for boys.
Yeah,
And that on its own is, and now we intertwine them. It's an explosion.
it really is. It's a powder keg ready to go off,
Mm-hmm.
not just like playing the games or seeing these images, but also, turning it from virtual reality into reality, which could
Mm-hmm.
could happen. Could be a powder keg.
Well, and you know what it all comes down to, though? One word. In both of what I've just said, it all comes down to connection.
Mhm.
Our young people are also more disconnected than ever before, and yet it looks connected. You got 20,000 friends on TikTok or Instagram, but there's not the deep, meaningful relationships there. And there's also disconnection in families. The kids I worked with at the psychiatric unit, the common denominator, and I'm going to say 97% of the kids that I had, was a disconnection with mom and dad, not feeling worthy of mom and dad's love, or maybe feeling like, even for those like super high powered parents, the kids feeling that they were and are neglected, and just this disconnection of relationship and safety within the relationships. It all comes down to connection. By the way, I think that also our answers to all of the homelessness we see, and in Vancouver here, the downtown east side, is connection. That's the antidote.
So what do we need to do in order to, put more connection back into family? I wrote a book last year called Live Life Swift, and
Mm-hmm.
the T in that, so it's an acronym for living your best life. And the T in that is taking care of. And taking care of is your health and your family.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be reading a story to your kids before they go to bed, or it could be Friday night dinner where you gather, you turn off the phones, you turn off the technology, and you have discussion and maybe games night and a nice meal. So because like, one of the questions I wanted to ask is around parenting. Parents have a lot of pressure on them as far as investing time and communication skills needed to foster better relationships with their kids and that connection, as you alluded to. What needs to happen, first of all, at home? We'll look at the home front. What can parents do, given their challenges, to build connection and meaningful time with their kids?
Look, David, I empathize with the plight of parenting today and in today's climate and economy. And I know there are parents out there that have to pay the bills. And I think even more single parents that are on their own paying the bills. And within that, though, I strongly believe that we still make decisions every minute of the day of what that evening's going to look like, what the time's going to look like. I just this morning had something with my son, and I actively chose to drop other things to be able to be there for him. And I make many mistakes. Like I make many mistakes, but just case in point, like he needs me for something, and it was quite significant, serious.
Yeah.
In the middle of that moment, what decision am I making? But then there's also longer term decisions of our time together, prioritizing that Friday night rituals of dinner, and pizza and a movie or whatever people can afford, and that time spent together. And it really is. I just think it's so simple. It's the time spent together in non-judgmental spaces. And I just love you so much, my child, that you are so great to hang out with, and you are worthy of my time, and you are worthy of me putting down my laptop or my cell phone and lean into you and look at you and listen and understand what's going on with you. And it doesn't have to be a even always heavy discussions. It's just being there. And the other common denominator that I did find with the kids on the psych unit was that didn't happen for the kids that were disconnected. And I heard story after story about how the parent wasn't there. And so there's a spectrum of how available people are. Absolutely. But I even somebody who has to work many hours a week can still choose opportunities, either in a moment or planned, to just spend time with their kids.
Yeah, and connect. I remember seeing Tony Robbins speak, and it was a whole series of speakers, right? Les Brown, Kenneth Cole, the designer, the late
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne Summers, Tony Robbins, of course. One of the speakers was a great guy. I actually used to host a weekly radio show back then. It was a small business talk show, and one of the fellows that spoke was a guy by the name of Jim Fanning. He was a coach, like, high end sports kind of coach, but also, you know, upper level executives. Anyway, he had this thing called the 90-second rule. And so
Mm,
once he came in home, he would devote 90 seconds of just pure
that's great.
attention and listening
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
his wife or his kids, whoever was there. And it
Yeah, it's a
just,
hard, fast rule.
yeah, and it does a
Yeah.
world of good.
It does. You know what I found with my kids when my kids were little, and I have always juggled way too many balls, and I own that, is when they woke up, if I spent the first 30 minutes completely focused on them, they were good for the rest of the day. Not that I didn't spend time in the rest of the day, but that morning
Yeah,
time. Now my kids are older, but do you know what? They still need that. It comes out maybe differently. But that me being completely attentive and tuned in and nothing else going on for my child. And that might happen in micro minutes for some people, but it's just being there and present. And when I say present, it means the screens have got to go away.
I like what you're saying because it's doable. You don't have to, have a degree in psychology to do this as a parent. You just need to plan, to be there, to book, block the time. Like, I remember one of my colleagues always block time every day for a workout at the gym. You always have to do
Mm-hmm.
that with your kids. Block that time. And
Yeah.
it goes a long way. And you agreed, like a Friday night dinner where it's games night, or you're painting, or you're talking about a topic, or
Yeah.
just connecting is so important.
Yeah, that ritual, like if families can find a ritual, choose a night and hold that sacred. When the kids are older, that might not be as sacred, but I what I found with our kids, and I got it from my other friend that had done it, and her kids are now in their 30s, is we're creating something when you're young, or we might start later, but my kids still want it. They still want to do the time they grew up with it. And so even in their 20s, they still ask for pizza and a movie. I just want to add one more thing, though, is
Yeah,
that this
please.
mental health crisis, and I
Yeah,
call it a crisis,
yeah.
is that I asked 25 kids over the course of a year, students, so between 13 and 18 years old, what did you need as your mental health deteriorated? And what really is, I think, powerful information to hold on to is nobody said a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Nobody said worksheets. Nobody said a modality. Nobody said more therapy. Every single student alluded to an adult who gave them support and understanding and care.
Mm.
That's it. You can't do that if you're not spending time with your child and leaning into them. How we do that is, we could get into that deeply, but it just comes down to I'm supporting and I'm understanding and I'm caring for you, and that could be your Friday night pizza.
Yeah, man, I love it. And and again, it's the simplicity of it. But what concerns me too is, as you alluded to earlier, parents are going through it too. The financial struggles, the work stress.
Hmm.
Am I going to be replaced by AI? Like, all of these things are coming at us all at once. It's almost like a perfect storm. And
Yeah.
my question to you is, as parents, we might have a disconnect too. in terms of
Yep.
being there and being emotionally available. I use air quotes on that.
Yep.
Emotionally available for our kids and our family. What's your take on that? Because
Well,
I run into it with my own family.
yeah. Here's the thing, David. Nobody wants perfect. Nobody
Mm.
wants perfect. The kids said that too. It came out in my research too. Mine was pertaining to educators, but it was for all the adults in the room. Is we know that you teachers are fallible. We know you make mistakes, and they said this to me. We know you're not perfect. You know what it was? We just want you to try. So within our brokenness as parents and adults in the room, we don't need to be perfect. And it's even coming with that brokenness. But you start with just a conversation. I'm not saying you need to know how to do cognitive behavior therapy with your child for anxiety. I'm saying you love them. And I'm saying that your face needs to light up when your child walks into the room. That's what they want. So within the brokenness and with our own past and people's own trauma and history and their own mental health challenges, it it feels such a mountain, but we just can start so easily.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of things come down to self-love. Even
Yeah.
adults,
Yeah.
we don't practice self
Yeah. Yeah.
mirror work, looking in the mirror and going, I love you.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many adults do you know do that? Probably
Yeah.
gonna laugh at you.
Yeah.
But
But you know what you're also though talking about, like, okay, so I was at a funeral yesterday of a man who's in a very high powered position in this province. His dad died. And I know my friend who's in the high powered position needs security at meetings because there's so much hate to him. He's feared for safety. He left and worked in a different area because being in the same neighborhood city was too challenging for his position. And in that funeral yesterday, I heard the stability of his mom and dad. I heard how they were loved unconditionally. They had family time together. The sun just rose and set on these children that were raised by these parents that loved them. And in that moment in the funeral, I'm thinking about it is this is how my friend can handle all the hate that he gets in his position. But what it's alluding to then is how we set our kids up to be adults and to be parents. And so often it's the parents that have had that instability growing up that are finding more challenges parenting themselves because this is something that starts from childhood. So therefore, it is a high calling. I believe it's a doable calling to really know that you can have a connected relationship with your child and that that is their grounding and their foundation. And I don't believe that that's too late to start because there are parents out there where the kids are older and I believe we can rebuild relationships, but it comes to leaning in and connecting and prioritizing your child.
what if the parent's broken though? What if they're alcoholic or and they have addiction issues or abusive, physically, sexually, emotionally?
Yeah, then you go get help. So if there is substance use, I will say adamantly, you need to go get help. There are 12-step programs. I will tell you something interesting. So a substance use disorder is considered a mental health disorder in our diagnostic and statistic manual. So it counts as a mental health disorder. But of any challenge I've seen in mental health, the one challenge where you could get help today is with substance use. You could get into an AA group within an hour on Zoom. You can get into an NA group and you can get a sponsor within a day. There's no other support like it for any other mental health disorder. So it's out there and it's free. So if there are substance use challenges, I know I'm sounding a little bit harsh on this, but it does destroy children because mom and dad aren't there. I had a girl in tears that her dad couldn't get sober for her and he died from alcoholism. And what it did to her soul was growing up and now believing that she wasn't worth it and having somebody that either wasn't present or was potentially being neglectful or abusive. So, like, without pause, I say if parents do battle with substance use disorders, you go find a program, whatever that is. I'm all about 12 steps. I'm into an abstinence-based programs. We won't get into harm reduction, but harm reduction, whatever works for people, and just to really work through that because it really has a huge effect on kids. If you are a parent and you find you're yelling a lot, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of ways. I just did an interview with a woman who used to yell at her kids, and she did therapy. But there's also a lot of free things now on something called YouTube, right? Online platforms of how do I regulate myself, and even the practice of learning. Okay, I got to breathe first. I'm not engaging yet. How do I regulate and then enter into a conversation? And she told me she learned it for a few years and she has come leaps and bounds, but she put the work into it because she did not want to be her parents. And she's now got a great relationship with the kids, but it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. And it's work.
It's like the old joke, like how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to really want to change,
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. And
you
it's not easy. I empathize. I
yeah,
empathize.
I do
And
too.
yeah, I do. And I don't want to do a guilt, like I'm not trying to do a guilt trip. Trying to do a responsibility trip. Because when we choose to have children, it's not a pastime. Can't be an afterthought. It can't be. And I really believe our number one responsibility in life is our kids first, and then we'll have our own time later. I put my career on hold for 15 years with my kids, 20.
Mm,
And I'm into it more now, as you can see. But you just can't have that all at once. And making those decisions in the moment of how that's going to look and your priorities. And for my journey's been I really put my career on hold, and then it was my time later.
yeah,
And I got it later.
yeah. And now they've got a good foundation. So when you teach parents or coach them, what are they wanting and what skills are vital for them to produce resilient teens and young adults?
The biggest concern I would say that's going on right now is I don't know how to take the phone out of my child's hand or dealing with disruptive behavior, dealing with F off, dealing with kids that are disengaged, dealing with just you don't know how to manage this child. That's really the number one. And that could be also in the lines of mental health. My child is in their bed for a year. That happens. And based on my research, this is why I've coined get on their turf because I really believe that it starts with getting on their turf. So if your kid hates you and they're telling you to F off, it's a spectrum of getting on their turf. And it would be just step one is, hey, what do you want to go do? Do you want to go for a bike ride? Do you want to try to find a burger? Do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to rent a movie? Do you want to watch a Netflix movie? What do you want to do? Not what the parent wants to do. And it doesn't have to be anything deep. It's just let's go do something on your turf. And then the next phase, like if your mental health disorders or how they're feeling, you don't get it, go get on the turf by learning where they're at. Learn about it. And even where do they want to be? Like us taking initiative, getting on their turf is kids don't want to find us in our office. Kids would love us to take initiative. So knock on the bedroom door and plunking on the floor, or just us taking initiative and pursuing our kids is enormous. That's all getting on their turf. But there's a sliding spectrum based on where we're at, starting with our kids.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo it. Um, I taught a workshop for young people back in mid-March, and it was write your future. Like it's you a year from now. What does it look like, right? And we also did sort of visualization and meditation, and
Mm-hmm.
and two of the participants had no interest in creating their vision or what they wanted to see happen or who they wanted to be. And
Mm-hmm.
these are teens, these are sort of younger, 14 to maybe 17-year-old. And
Mm-hmm.
I found it alarming at the end because
Yeah.
it was sad. It's like you have no hope, you have no interest, you have no belief in this. It's like that something better is possible. Like,
Right.
how do you deal with that? And is it a parent like bad parenting, or do they need to go for help? And
I think so. As you're speaking about these kids responding like that, my initial response is if you don't have meaning and purpose now in your life, how do you know what that is for your future? Because you're really asking them a question about meaning and purpose. At the end of the day, aspiring to things. And it's also linked with hope, having hope in the future that you're able to then conceptualize what you want down the road. So I want to how can we build meaning and purpose now and make things meaningful? Got to get off the phones. There's no meaning and purpose in social media. I'm
yeah,
sorry, there's not. And finding things that are meaning and purposeful might be serving. It might even, another thing too, though, is like that hope I said. I think when kids get successful, and I don't mean straight A successful, I mean successful in their own right, and they see that they can do something,
yeah,
there's your hope. Now there's hope. And now you can start moving forward.
yeah. With one of the kids, she was really into pets, so it's like, okay, let's start there.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Start there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't know what meaning and purpose is if you don't have it now. And then you can't aspire for that or consider what that would be like for the future.
Right. And anything's possible, like anything. I remember, being a kid, I grew up in Ottawa. And I was a teenager. I just lost my dad. I was 10 when I lost him. And a few years later, my sister was friends with a guy who knew some of the Ottawa Rough Rider football players. And they got me into the dressing room, and I got to watch the practices. And one of the guys, uh, became like a big brother to me. And
Mm.
amazing man. He made his home in Texas in the winter as a teacher. So he obviously, got along well with kids. And that, like, if you told me now that would have happened, I would have said, you're crazy. I'd never meet.
Right.
But I did. And it was
It's
amazing.
possible. What I've seen happen is when kids see that they can do something, then they start aspiring. And one of the problems is too, though, our school systems. I'm the first to say that they're broken, but we are supposed to accommodate diverse learners, but we actually don't have the resources to do that properly.
Right.
I've seen so many kids struggle in school and not do well. And I actually believe that everybody can do school, but maybe in a different way and maybe learn it differently or output it differently. But they're not getting that in schools. And I worked with so many kids that felt stupid and they couldn't do it. It might be that they're completely inattentive. They might have like legitimate ADHD or huge trauma makes you inattentive. So then they feel that they're losers and they can't do it. And as soon as they saw that, oh, I can read on my own a little bit, or I did some math equations, or I was able to finish an assignment, that is what brought the hope. So part of it, and this is huge messaging, is we need to find how everybody is going to be successful because it's possible. But our systems in place are not ideal to do it. And those 25 students, I asked them the best thing about my little psychiatric classroom where they came down the hallway, they had coffee, it was super quiet. The ratio was 1 to 5 to teacher, easygoing. And I thought they'd say, like, I got an espresso coffee, or I got some nice treats, or I could listen to music, whatever it was. None of that. Nothing I expected came out. Every single one of the 25 attributed something to success. Everyone. Everyone. And I finished the math. I handled the assignment. Maybe I can graduate high school. I found that I like psychology and maybe I could go to university. And I interpreted that as they found some hope and hope in the future and hope of making their own lives that were full of meaning and purpose and breaking the cycle that they had or what they were in and being able to thrive. It was powerful.
Yeah.
So how can we make everybody can do it. How can we do that? That's a whole other story.
Well,
But
that's actually
there's so many ways.
my next question for you. This is the Big Venture Zone, the podcast for entrepreneurs and founders 20 to 35, and we're with the very lovely Dr. Suzanne Simpson, parenting expert, and she does wonderful work around mental health with teens and young adults. You know, we've been talking about educators, and that's another group that you speak and you teach to and you guide. And they have too a big responsibility for our kids' mental health and self-esteem. You know,
Hmm.
one kind of insult, oh, what a dumb piece of art, Billy, you know, um, could really stop them in their tracks in the area
Yeah.
of hope and passion and whatnot. What are some areas that teachers, professors need to be mindful of and practice on a regular basis? What would you like to see?
You know what I'd like to see?
Yeah.
Kids before curriculum. That's what I'd like to see. The kids go before the curriculum, and teachers are very bound by what we're supposed to be doing and checking off our curricular competencies and all the things we're teaching. And then you do your assessment, your report cards. And I'm not knocking that, but it's again in that instant or long term planning that we're making decisions. And we could teach the best calculus in the world. But if our students don't feel seen, heard, and understood, it means nothing. Because at the end of the day, we all forget what we learned. I did a
Mhm.
history degree. I can't tell you anything about the history. Like I can't tell you anything about history anymore, right?
Yeah, and when was the
But
last time you
that
used calculus, Suzanne?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I want to speak though for founders and entrepreneurs. I'm not saying we coddle. I'm saying we build up. And there's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of people that come they have a lot of hidden lack of self-worth.
Mhm.
And it's a good facade we put on. And social media is teaching more than ever, put on a great facade of how good you're doing. So they don't appear maybe that they're insecure or that they need to be built up. So I'm not saying false praise, but I'm saying attack what's good and take the time to tell somebody who's working for you or that you're working with of something that was really positive. And it's that decision then, right? It's same thing, decision to take that time. There's your connection. But I think you bring more meaning and purpose. You bring more hope. And then we create a workforce that are grounded and they feel in a safe space. And when we feel like we are in a safe space, now we open up for learning, for work, for creativity.
Yeah. If you treat people well and you honor and you respect them, you know, give them parameters too. I mean, it's not like
Absolutely.
free for all either. You're there to, you know, work if you're working and to learn. But I like the idea of get rid of the curriculum. I really do. Like, I know it sounds like, you know, I'm from a hippie from the 60s, but what the hell? We need like, you know, let's get outside. Let's connect with nature. Let's do some art and connect with each other. And
Yeah.
you know, let's have conversation. Throw those freaking phones away. You
Yeah.
know, you don't have to. It doesn't matter, right?
David, so I'm not saying to get rid of curriculum. I'm saying we have to, it's not a priority.
Right.
It's not
Okay.
a priority. And I'm all into, we got to get outside more. We got like creativity is getting killed in schools. But you know,
Mhm.
I still want a doctor. I want an architect to build my house that it's going to actually be structurally sound. I need that bridge to be built by an engineer that it doesn't kill 100 people because it falls down. And so I value what we teach. I do. And I think the process of learning it is powerful, but we put so much emphasis on it that we lose sight of why I became a teacher to begin with, right? When I aspired to become a teacher, I taught French immersion for 20 years. I didn't go, I'm going to teach verbs better than any other teacher and they're going to know their present tense. That's not why I became a teacher. And yet we so easily lose sight of that. And then we get so bound by the curriculum that we lose that creativity, thinking outside of the box, getting outside, and all these other like really important adult skills that, by the way, are not tested in high schools or university, but I actually think they're your success as
Yeah.
an adult. Social emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, how to look somebody in the eye when you're having a conversation.
Yeah, or admit you're wrong and it's okay. Don't worry about the shame and the guilt of it. Like it'll pass. 5 years from now, you'll forget about it anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So what teaching, like I still taught the curriculum, but my kids were first. My September goals were not assessing where they were at or doing stupid little tests. It was, who are you? I want to know you. I value you. I see you. What did you do on the weekend? And I went through profiles of what are their struggles, just to build that foundation of relationship. And then I could teach. So I taught by September, October.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned coddling. I had that in a question actually, and I really believe too we have to teach kids good values, common sense, and I feel we also need to teach grit and resiliency. We can't, yes, we can, oh poor me, and I'm
Yeah,
going to give up or whatever. But I think we have to teach. Are we coddling our kids, and do we need to teach
absolutely.
grit and
We are
resilience?
absolutely coddling our kids. So
Okay.
here's the thing is that now with the mental health, I'm seeing this more, and I teach an alternate education. And I'm an outlier because I call stuff. Like I call things. Like I call, is it easier maybe to stay in bed instead of getting to school? And can we maybe say it's a bit of laziness? Like, what do you think? Because we're so hooked on all the mental health, and it's real. I was at a psych unit. I worked with psychiatry. It's very real. But there's also an element of, okay, so what are you going to do about it? I'm here to support you. It's really hard, but you got to get yourself out of bed. And I think that we coddle so much because we want to fix things. We don't let kids fail. Our school system doesn't let kids fail. And I am all about high expectations. But the thing about grit and resiliency that we have to acknowledge is it is also, I use this word a lot, it is a spectrum. So my children were raised in a home with no trauma, right? I would like to think we put our everything into the kids. They might disagree. I have high expectations of them doing their best. Now, I don't expect them to be I don't know, a CEO or head of Apple, but it's that I want you to do your best. And did you try your best? And they can do that. But then let's pretend, so it was, I'm going to give you an example. A student I worked with, I'm not going to get into the details because it's too hard to hear, but he was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. He was born with a mild intellectual disability. I will not go on about the trauma he had at home. He had the trauma, it's an out of 10, it's adverse childhood experiences. He was a 10 out of 10. For him, if he could get out of bed, get to school and show up right there, that's his grit because that's where he's at right now. So we have to be careful of that word, I think, with who we're talking about and where they're at and where they need to go to because it can be toxic. Like I actually think that word sometimes, and I say this after my psychiatric time. I didn't say this before because I taught French immersion. I taught the top of the district. I had and my parents' group were lawyers and doctors and highly educated people, and then I shifted complete to the psychiatric unit, and my lens changed a bit because if you've got depression and you've been in bed for weeks and the world is awful for you and you don't want to be here anymore and you've got debilitating anxiety that you can't even think of walking into a school door, we're starting at a different point.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. It's harsh and it's severe and it needs tending to. It needs,
But my kids hear grit all the time. I'm like, you don't like school? Suck it up, buttercup. Like you got a final exam. I hate it. I hated it too. You got to study. So, right?
thank you, Angela Duckworth. Um,
Yes.
can
Yep.
I ask you some rapid fire questions to,
Yep.
to complete our interview? This is great.
Go
And
challenge me.
you're okay, you ready? So
I'd love to not answer one. Go
we
ahead.
we talked about this already. Social media kept as is. Um, there's limits us a lot, I feel, to have open discussions about the dangers of it with our
Mm-hmm.
kids. So do we need to have good conversations about the dangers of social media with our kids?
We need to start with our kids when they're young of let's talk about what this actually is. You think that they're all your friends? Are they with you when you are sick or are they checking up on you? You think that everybody else has a great life that they post. Let's talk about branding because social media is everybody creates a brand and nobody posts about crying themselves to sleep at night because they're so miserable and having really honest dialogues of the reality of that world is I think number one what you're entering into Number two, I am also the very first person. I want to see full bans in schools. I don't want to see it all day long. I don't want to see it at lunch. It is possible, but the problem is we're positioned to think that it's not. And I watch teachers say, I don't want to fight this battle. And it just, I seethe. Because you know what? We did it with cigarettes, David. We did it with cigarettes. Remember when cigarettes were on ward air on an airline?
Yeah, or you could
Right?
smoke at
And
the
you had your
office.
smoking section of the airplane. Yes, hospitals. And it was in
Oh,
2008. It was the BC Tobacco Act, 2008. And remember, they banned it. They banned it from everywhere. Inside, couldn't smoke right in front of certain places. People freaked out. The pubs said we're going to lose all of our business. Restaurants are going to like all go bankrupt. And what happened was we adapted faster than everybody thought that we would. And it is not policed anymore. You don't have policemen in restaurants getting somebody to stop smoking. There's a social conscience now, and clean air quality is a common value. So I've talked about this at schools. That picture a student like lighting up a cigarette in the middle of the hallway in front of the office, and we don't want to deal with it. And yet we know that social media is killing our kids physically, like I mean literally, with suicide that is going on related to that. We
yeah.
know it is increasing anxiety, it's increasing depression, the list goes on and on. We changed it with cigarettes. But it was drastic. It was actually non-negotiable. There were no more smoking sections in pubs and bars, dance clubs, restaurants.
Yeah, and it was
Done.
fine. Yeah. I remember,
And we lived.
and we did, and we were fine now. I remember being in Chicago on business, this is years ago, like 2005, and they were trying to ban smoking in restaurants there. And I remember going to the hotel and, what's that smell? Oh, that's smoking, that's non-smoking. Anyway, there was a big cry from the restaurants and the bars and everything. And one of the speakers uh, fighting against this law was Mike Ditka, former head coach of the Chicago Bears. He owned a cigar bar, and he said, "This is going to kill
Yeah.
me." Well, it didn't.
Yeah.
He,
Right. Yeah.
he had to just
Yeah.
evolve and change and modify.
Yeah. We need to have candid conversations, and really we need to set boundaries. And so for parents at home, it is hard. It is so easy to put your kid on the iPad all day. COVID, I actually think that was the problem with especially our younger kids, is parents had to work and kids were on screens. Like, how often is the babysitter? I'm all about rules of, phones are off at 8, 9 p.m., depending. They're not at the dinner table. They're not on in the car. And the earlier we start that, the easier it is.
Okay.
But it is possible. And then, kids, legally, I mean, they're not supposed to be on it anyways until they're, what, 13, 14 years old. And that's changing, as you know, around the world in certain countries. Like the latest one is at Germany, and they're going to 15 minimum, just completely illegal before that, as like you need ID to buy alcohol.
Yeah.
So we're getting there. And the reason we're getting there is because we're seeing like, oh, shoot, it was like cigarettes cause cancer. Shoot, oh, they cause a lot of cancer. And then we went, oh, cell phones and the social media and all those other apps are actually like doing like life-threatening damage.
And some feel it's creating, brain cancer just from the waves, right? So yeah. So decrease your time, basically. Here's my next rapid fire question. Anxiety about education and the need to be perfect.
Oh, do you want me to just say whatever I think about
Say
that?
whatever is in your mind.
So the problem is we put too much pressure, and that it's unspoken pressure. So even in a community, so I live in a community that's highly educated. And from day one, I've counteracted that with my kids because I taught in this community too. And from the day one, I just want you to do your best. I just want you to do your best. I don't care if you get an A. I just want you to work hard and do your best. And yet, particularly my daughter walked out of high school with this huge pressure of what she was supposed to do at university. And here the dialogue isn't, are you going? Here the dialogue is, where are you going? And we work through that, and then it became, actually, I need to become something in life. So there's just such a huge unspoken expectation in so many parts of this world of what it means. And I really think, I think here's what I think the answer is. If we focus, David, on process instead of outcome, there's our game changer. I care how you do it. I don't care if you failed the test. Did you work hard? And I'm not looking at your final outcome because I just want you to learn how to do this. I want you to work hard. I want you to like learn how to learn. We once, my son did really, no, my daughter did really well in a test. No, my son did really well in a test. My husband comes home with a treat for him. And I was like, no, because then you're saying now you're rewarding the outcome. But I wanted him to work just as hard on the other test that he bombed as the one that he did better on.
Great. Good stuff. Okay, next rapid fire question. Having life figured out by 18 or 25. I have a soon to be 14-year-old family member. I won't say what the relation is, but it's pretty close. Anyway, so wants to be a lawyer. It's like, relax.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, having it figured out by 18 or 25.
I just actually did a podcast with a student I taught her. Her name's Danny she just aired a few weeks ago. She was in grade 7 and wanted to go Harvard Law,
Yeah.
12, 13 years old. And I was like, whoa, cowgirl, hold on a second. And one of the things that I would say to my students is, do you know where I went to university? No. Does it matter? No. Do you care? No. So that's one thing about where we go to university. And then the other one is I think we all have to constantly offset what's around us in culture. Constantly, like on a daily basis with our kids. Like you do what you want to do, but I want you to like have joy in life. I want you to be able to go outside and play or sports or time together with us, time together with friends, and really and modeling that as a priority. Because part of the problem is if I'm modeling that as a parent, right, esteeming for whatever it is that I'm esteeming for, and I'm not saying not to achieve higher, but just that's the focus that takes over everything else, and that's your number one priority, then the kids learn that really easily.
Okay, we're moving through. A couple more left. We're with Dr. Suzanne Thompson. Long day today. Dr. Suzanne Simpson, she's in BC, joining us on our podcast today. Here's another, we're almost done. We've got two more questions. What are 3 tools to enhance emotional well-being for our young people?
Oh gosh. Okay, 3 tools. Number 1, have a in-person conversation. Just learn it, but learn it. Have an in-person conversation where you're looking at somebody and you're standing in front of them and work to do that. It's more work, right? Texting doesn't count. Number 2 is learn communication skills. And what by that I mean, if I've got a problem with a friend, I can't text about it, which is really hard, but actually it's going back to conversations and being able to learn how to work through stuff. So learn about how to say how you feel without judgment on the other person. I don't know, how to be able to approach something with somebody without being accusatory, how to be able to come up with a solution with somebody when there's conflict. And then the last one, again, I really believe in why are we here? This is going to get a little bit deep. When I'm on my deathbed, what do I want to say that I did? Did I want to be somebody with, for me, say, like 1 million followers and I wrote 10 books and I spoke in front of 100,000 people? Or do I want people to say she loved me? I was the number one in her life. She showed up at the funeral yesterday. The grandson said, Papa showed up. He was there and present. And so that is how we live our lives. And that is what dictates our decisions that we make in life with really where I want to be at the end. Helps me choose what I'm doing now.
It's like Dr. Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits, he talks about what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? And work on that, be that kind of person,
So, if we consider that, it's actually really transformative.
Yeah, because it's not about work. He even talked about, we're not on our deathbed going, man, I wish I put more hours in at work, you know?
Totally. Or I wish I had more money. So listen, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to pursue careers at all,
No, no.
but we all have to, we can't have everything. Sheryl Sandberg's book Lean In was wrong. You can't have everything at the same time. You can have them at different times. So then when we want to have everything, we have to prioritize and something's got to give.
Yeah.
So there comes those decisions that lead to my deathbed, right? Am I going to go watch my kid's soccer game or do I want to finish another paper?
Yeah. Last rapid fire question. How can our young people have calm, practicality, and common sense other than,
I yeah, when we believe more in ourselves, we're able to think more clearly. We're able to make the best decisions in the moment. And there's your practicality. If I enter a decision and I'm full of, I don't know, shame, insecurity, abandonment issues, and I've not worked through them, then that practicality is actually going to be out the window. So I make best decisions. Yeah, I just, yeah.
okay.
I paused there, didn't I?
Yeah. All right. It's all good. I had a beautiful lesson right before my dad passed away. And I asked him, "Hey, Dad, I was 10. How much does a clown make?" And he said, "What do you care what a clown makes? Just do it and be happy."
Yeah.
I love that. It stayed with me all these years. Just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
do it and be happy. You're going to come in and out of all kinds of careers and things you work on,
Yeah.
maybe
But
travel to a new country
yeah.
and help them, whatever.
Yeah. But we're more confident when we have the self-worth, when we've worked through our stuff, and that's how we make the best decisions, I think. I've seen a lot of people with a lot of trauma and their making and their practicality is skewed, like a foggy glass in front of them because all of those things so easily get in the way.
Yes. Yeah. The fear, the pain, the potential
Or they won't like
repercussion.
me.
Yeah, they won't
They
like.
they won't like my decision. I want them to like me even if you're not actually thinking that. Or they're going to think I'm an idiot. So decisions can be easily made based on our own self-perception.
Well, even in this economy, making decisions based on fear. It's like,
I know. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
just be practical. You don't have to have it all right.
Yeah,
This,
exactly. And I want for freedom for people. We're too hard on ourselves. So as much as I do have high expectations on parents' time with their kids, we are all fallible. And some of my biggest mistakes, David, my biggest mistakes that I cringe at now were my best learning moments. And those were my moments of growth in my life.
hmm. Dr. Suzanne Simpson, I really want to thank you for this today.
Thanks for
What,
having me.
oh, what a joy. What have you got going on that our listeners need to know about?
You mean my channel
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
or what
like
I'm
shameless self-promotion,
Yeah,
doctors.
for self-promotion, shameless.
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel of all of this stuff. I do interviews between. I've actually am trying to interview more young people because my big thing is what are kids saying? We adults, we think we're hot stuff with all our experience and my 30 years teaching and really like what are the kids thinking? So my podcast is Get on Their Turf on YouTube. I am on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn is Dr. Suzanne Simpson and Facebook
Okay.
for the old timers.
Hey, for the old timers. People like me is that what you're saying? Um, I'll never have you back again. No. Anyway, thank you so much. That was Dr. Suzanne Simpson. She joined us from her home office in British Columbia today. Next week, we're going to talk with Fiona James about spiritual principles for success. I'm David Cohen. This has been the Big Venture Zone. Thank you so much for listening. Do like, share, comment, do a thumbs up on our YouTube channel. It all helps. And in the meantime, just have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much.